In this presentation, we will be looking at Unit 4.1 and Unit 4.2 vocabulary parts. And we will be focusing on the difference between make and do and the vocabulary related to education. Okay, this is an overview of the presentation. We will start with focusing on the difference between make and do. Well, why is this difference important? Many students make mistakes with these two words, okay? And the problem is native speakers of English almost never make these mistakes. Actually, when you make these mistakes, we understand that you are just learning English or you're a low-level speaker. I hope this lesson will help you fully understand how to use them correctly and you will never make these mistakes again. And then we will also be focusing on the collocations of these two words. You know, collocations are words that go together regularly, so you know when you have a difficult time to say something like speech. Are you going to say do a speech or make a speech? After that, we will be looking at some of the vocabulary related to education. And of course, we will have some practice with answers, and finally, I'm going to suggest some further study and practice. Before we move on, let's make clear what we know about make and do. Well, in previous units, we have already introduced the verbs make and do. So you are familiar with the collocations like do exercise, do online courses, or make friends. There are also some other sentences you can remember, such as when you visit a new city, what kinds of things do you like to do? This is from previous unit, Unit 3. And the answer is, I like to go sightseeing with friends, or it could be anything else. And we have another sentence here. What do people do when it is too cold to go out? And the answer could be, most people usually spend time on the internet. And we have some other sentences. Which country makes the most cars? This sentence is a question sentence and it is from Unit 3.2. And the answer is, China makes the most cars. And we have another, which country makes the most films? It is India. India makes the most films. Before we begin studying the difference between do and make, I would like to emphasize how important it is to study and learn vocabulary. If you spend most of your time studying grammar, your English will not improve very much. You will see the most improvement if you learn more words and expressions. You can say very little with grammar, but you can say almost anything with words. Or, as you see on the screen, without grammar you can do little, but without vocabulary you can do nothing. Of course, that doesn't mean that you don't have to study grammar. What this saying is trying to tell us is, learning or studying vocabulary does really matter. If language structures make up the skeleton of a language, then it is the vocabulary that provides the vital organs and the flesh. So, if one wants to use language effectively, he must have a good stock of vocabulary. Do not forget that language is made up of words. Now, let's start with the first use of do. We use do when someone performs specific actions, tasks, and obligations. The verb do is often used when referring to work of any kind and referring to the action itself. Use the verb do to express daily activities or jobs. Notice that these are usually activities that produce no physical object. All of these examples are specific jobs or tasks, and that's why we use the verb do. Look at this first example. Jane is doing the laundry. So here, this is the present continuous tense, and we have another sentence here. Steve did the shopping yesterday. This is the simple past, and this sentence, has Kate done the washing up, is in present perfect. So done is the past participle form of the verb do. Here you see some other example sentences. I usually do my homework after dinner. Both my mother and father do the housework. I like to do the ironing while I watch TV. Tom does a few jobs around the house. Now, a second use of do is to describe non-specific actions or activities. Look at this sentence. Hurry up. I have got things to do. Things here refers to non-specific actions or tasks. And the same here with something. I am bored. I want to do something. This tells us that the activity is non-specific and we don't know what something refers to here. And there are lots of words that suggest non-specific activities or actions. These words are such as thing, what, something, anything, nothing, everything. Whenever we see these words, we understand that we need to use the word do rather than make. And we also use the word do to replace another word, only if the meaning is clear from the context. Here, for example, I'm not ready, I have to do my hair. So she's saying, I'm not ready, I have to do my hair. And here, the verb do is replacing another word. In fact, it is replacing the verb brush or comb. But it's okay to use the word do because the meaning is clear. Here we have another example. I will do the bathroom if you do the car. So, what do you think the verb that we are replacing here? Here, the first do replaces the verb to clean, and the second word do replaces the verb to wash. Now let's look at the verb make. When do we use the verb make? Well, with make you are creating something that didn't exist before. Example. You can learn how to make face masks during coronavirus shortage. So here, make means create. Whether it is from already existing material or from nothing, but the end product didn't exist before. Here is another example. Scientists are trying hard to make a vaccine for COVID-19. So here, the end product is a vaccine for COVID-19. Now let's look at the second very common use of make. When we discuss food and drink, we prefer the verb make. Kate has made a cup of coffee, and Sally has made a delicious chocolate cake. So again, we are creating or producing something. We consider cooking, food, and drink to be a creative activity. That's why we use the verb make. We do not say she has done a cup of coffee Or Sally has done a delicious cake. We say Kate has made a cup of coffee and Sally has made a delicious chocolate cake. Here are some other examples. Make a snack. Prepare a snack. Dave was on a diet, but I found him in the kitchen making a snack. And another one, make a meal. It means cook a meal. So you can use make for both breakfast, lunch, and you can also use it for dinner. Here are the sentences. Would you mind making some meals for my granddad while I am away on holiday? I will make dinner tonight if you make breakfast tomorrow morning, okay? Before we begin our first practice activity, I would like to remind you something really important. As with all English rules and concepts, there are always exceptions. Exceptions here means collocations that do not follow the rules. And for the verbs do and make, there are many expressions which do not follow those rules. So, again, the only option for us is to learn these expressions. For a few seconds, you may pause the video and think about whether the expressions given here are exceptions or not. And then decide which of the phrases in bold you can see in the pictures. You can now check your answers here. As you see in picture A, person is here doing business in another language. And in picture B, the man in a suit with a red tie makes a speech. Actually, when we use make a speech, we can also replace that make with give a speech. It means give a talk or make a talk. And in picture C, you see here the woman has to make a decision. And we have another picture, and by her physical attributes, we can understand that she's doing badly in this exam. And how about this picture? She's making a phone call, right? We don't know if it is in another language, but you surely must know that making a phone call in another language is always very difficult. And we have another picture here. In picture F, so they are doing a project in a big team or with a big team. And our last example, so the boy in this school bus here does his homework. So he does his homework on the way to school. I now have another practice activity for you here. Pause the video and complete the sentences with the correct forms and uses of the verb make and do. You can now check your answers here. Now let's learn about school, college, and university vocabulary. To give this vocabulary, I think it is important to look at the state education in England. In the UK, after you become an infant, which means after you are born, you go to a nursery school or a preschool, And at the age of 3 and at the age of 5, you start the compulsory education. Children finish their secondary school at the age of 16, and then they choose between higher education or further education. In the university or any other higher education establishment, you study for a degree, but in a further educational institution, you get a diploma or a certificate. A university degree shows that you have the academic background, and a further education diploma or certificate is a proof that you have the qualification to do certain jobs. What involves compulsory education in the UK is there are independent schools, also known as public schools. Let's continue with the education vocabulary. School subjects. Well, what do you learn at school? Here are some of the most common school subjects students study at school. Look at the pictures and decide what school subjects the pictures show. After that, think about these two questions. Which school subjects did you like at school? Were there any subjects you didn't like? Here are the answers. Well, now you have the answers here. And be careful about the pronunciation and the stress. Actually, you know how to use your online dictionaries to improve your pronunciation and stress patterns. But first, let's do this all together. Math. Math. Physics. Physics. Chemistry. Chemistry. Biology. Biology. Geography. Geography. History. History. Information technology. Information technology. Physical education. Physical education. Arts. Arts. Language. Language. Now let's begin our first practice activity about the vocabulary related to education. This pyramid shows the stages of state education in the UK. Please pause the video for a few seconds and put the stages of state education in the correct place in the diagram. Now you can check your answers here. Now let's continue with our next practice activity. Here we have some sentences. These are sentences about school subjects. So, complete these sentences with school or university subjects. You can now check your answers with the key here. Finally, we have some suggestions for further study and practice. I strongly suggest you to watch this YouTube video here about the collocations with make and do. It captures some very nice scenes from movies and TV shows to present how native speakers of English use the verbs be and make. And don't forget to do the online activities in your English lab, of course. You will also find very decent activities in pre-intermediate extra vocabulary. This is the end of this course, and thanks for listening.